So I figured I'd just kind of make a video showing me beating the new event with the 77 completion without Magic Bullet Otis. With Magic Bullet Otis, it's once you kind of figure out the name of the game, it's relatively simple, but if you never rolled her, then you might have to get a bit more creative with your team comp, and the obvious way to line the team comp up, funny enough, actually kind of doesn't work, which would the obvious thing to do naturally would be make Regret Faust your team captain, but it doesn't really actually work out that well, which I'll talk a bit more about later. So the team I used here is going to be Isang with Spicebush, Faust with Regret, Reindeer Ishmael, Cinq, Sinclair, and then the W-Corp Ryoushu. And the first thing people usually say is, like, why would you use Sinclair and Ryoushu? Ryoushu is being brought along because she has a Pride E.G.O, which is Blind Obsession, which isn't that great, but it is a Pride AoE, which does help out now and again when the waves start to get pretty big. On top of that, her S2 is a Pride skill that basically kills anything it hits, so she's really, really good at just clearing out these early waves when we're still building up the resources that Faust and Isang want. And then it's the same with Sinclair. Sinclair's S2 and his S3 are going to basically kill anything he hits in the first, like, 3 to 4 waves. So they are really just brought along. Ryoushu for her AoE and ability to kill anything early, and Sinclair just because he is really good at clearing almost anything in these early waves. But we're going to keep him as the 5th person on our team just because we don't want to give him too many turns since he falls off as the fight goes on. Reindeer Ishmael comes along because she's going to be generating Gloom and Envy, which is going to be useful for helping keep people supplied with Blind Obsession, on top of getting more E.G.O when he AoE kills things. The reason we use E as our team captain instead of Faust is because the team captain gives you E.G.O resources whenever you get a kill, which is naturally you want that, and Faust has all AoE, so why would you not do it with her? The thing though is that it also removes one of your S1s and gives you an S3, and Faust's S3 eats up 5 of her Tremor. So this actually makes it kind of hard for her to maintain any kind of Tremor count in the earlier waves because you either have to block or counter with her to not use up her S3, or you have to, which just passes a turn and you don't want that, or you have to use the S3 and then you're consuming a bunch of Tremor, and then on the later waves she's going to have a much harder time constantly using the AoE S2 and S3. So we make Yi the team captain because him getting an S3 gives him his Pride S3, which is really, really good. Anything he hits with it is going to die. And it removes one of his S1s, which are kind of lackluster. So he's building more Tremor, he's killing anything he's hitting, and he is able to use his S2 and actually hit the AoE with it much more consistently. On top of that, he has Sunshower, which is a like 7-man AoE E.G.O, and if he's able to be like one of your mid-movement kind of guys, like he is right here, honestly right in the middle, and you get a Sunshower out, he'll kill usually anywhere between 3 to maybe even the full 7 if you're lucky, and that really builds a lot of E.G.O resources, which helps keep Ishmael and Ryoushu supplied, because with Ishmael, you're going to get a point where around turn 4-5, which is where we're at now, Faust is going to be basically using Representation Emitter every single time she can't use one of her AoE skills. And Ryoushu is going to be wanting to use her Blind Obsession almost every turn. Same thing with Yi, with Sunshower, and same thing to an extent with Ishmael. Right here, I'm just kind of counting if I think I'm going to be able to kill them without the E.G.O on Ishmael, and I just kind of go with it anyway because I'm not quite sure if it'll work. And that's really the name of the game in this fight, is spamming as much of the E.G.O as you can and keeping yourself supplied, because the enemies are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, so you just need to be able to spam AoE. And the real question isn't what AoE to use. Since the enemies are weak to Pride, the question becomes how can I keep people supplied with the E.G.O resources I need to continuously spam this AoE. And that's why I find that Spicebush E works the best as the team captain here and not Faust. Moving on to passives, I'm running Cinq because I believe she gives just a straight damage boost to the fastest person, and then with a speed difference, so that's just basic flat damage. Merceau doesn't really have any passives that help too amazingly with this, so I think I just have him on like middle little brother. Ting Tang Gang leader Hong is really good because he's again just another flat damage increase for someone on the team. I think I'm using P-Quad Heathcliff just because he's another kind of Merceau where there's no real passives that are game-changing. I'm using Vanilla LCB Rodian because she's also just got another flat damage increase passive, so she's nice for things. And then Muller off is Outis, because her passive is that she'll give whoever's got the most tremor even more tremor build, and that can help keep Yi topped off. I think there's maybe one time here where Yi does actually maintain 1 tremor, and that gives him an AoE. So that'll help keep Yi topped off, but towards the end it'll keep Regret Faust topped off. And then Gregor's another person who his passive doesn't really matter that much. So the important ones are really just using Cinq Dawn, Vanilla Rodian, Ting Tang Gang Hong, and then Muller Office, Outis. And then from there, it's basically just kind of figuring out how the team plays. And that shouldn't really take too long. The big thing is just managing your E.G.O properly. You don't want to overuse the E.G.O and then not have it when you need it, but you also don't want to underutilize it and then find yourself screwed. Like right here, Faust has got enough of her tremor built up that I can use 2 of her S3s, and then her S2 is going to build some, and I know I'll have an S2 on her next turn as well. On top of that, I have so much pride that she can always spam Representation Emitter, so I'm fine just blowing all of her tremor right there. And then of course, now that he's not the one who's getting the bonuses from all the tremor, I'm always trying to throw a Sunshower out with him somewhere, either on the front and the back. These mob fights are kind of annoying because you can't really tell exactly who is going to be focused down, or which skill is going to come out first sometimes. Like right there, she's using her 3rd skill on the chain second instead of her 2nd one, so it's kind of weird. And then there's a couple of times where Yi will be using Sunshower on his last skill, and he'll go first with that, and it's his middle skill, and then he'll go first with that, or it's his 1st skill and he goes last with it. I don't quite get how it works sometimes. It feels like it does what it wants, but that's why it's good if he's in the middle of your party, because he'll generally, or at the end, because he'll generally clean up what other people didn't, and he'll get a lot of value from the Sunshower, and you'll guarantee E.G.O then at that point. This is around the point in the fight when Ryoushu and Sinclair are kind of starting to fall off. Sinclair's not really going to be killing everything he hits anymore, and he's going to have to use a lot of his S1s if you get his S2s and 3s early, so he kind of has like served his purpose. And at this point, Ryoushu is mainly just using her S2. For S3, she has charge for it, and if she's stuck with an S1, you just want to use Blind Obsession with that. You don't even want to bother. You don't even want to bother throwing that S1 at anything. It's just not worth it. It's not going to kill anything. And since you can't target things, it's not like you can have her and Sinclair focus the same unit. It's just not going to work well. We got 2 greens right here with E, so we're going to put him on the yellow for Sunshower, and he doesn't have enough tremor for his 3rd skill, or he doesn't have enough tremor to get his S2 to work, so I just throw the green and then another S2 anyway for just more damage. Representation Emitter on Faust, and then I throw Fluid Sac out just because I'm pretty flush with resources right now. I'm doing pretty well keeping them up. So I can use 2 AoEs with Faust and then throw another one out with Ishmael. She doesn't really need to build. She doesn't really need to help build the Gloom right now. And then Ryoushu right here, we're going to be using that again. And as you can see, Gloom is going to be the most important resource, because that fuels almost all of your big AoEs. So it's important to make sure you have enough of that. But it's kind of like if you've ever played Advanced Wars. You want to use all of your money every single turn, because anytime you don't use all of your money, your opponent is, and that's one more unit they'll have when your eventual tank line gets to them. It's kind of like that. You want to try to use all of your Gloom if you can in these later turns, because that means everyone is using their AoEs, and that maximizes the chance that you will kill all of these enemies. But you don't want to empty yourself out on it, if that makes sense, which sounds stupid. It sounds stupid. You want to use all your Gloom, but you don't want to use too much of your Gloom. It's again a balancing act, and that's the name of the game in this fight. It's just making sure your E.G.O is high and keeping things balanced. And I felt pretty confident that I could pop Fluid Sac right here and get the extra AoE, and it ended up working out for me. So that's good. Representation Emitter is going to come in and finish it out, and there's really not much more to say about this fight. The big thing is just the team comp, getting your team comp up, and then just learning how to play the comp. And again, this is actually my first try with this comp. So once I solidified the comp I thought was going to work, I actually got it first try. But I imagine there is quite a bit of RNG that'll go into this. If Yisang ends up rolling just too many low rolls on his Sunshower, or people just aren't targeting who you need them to target, you might get fucked, something might stay alive. But I think the effectiveness of this lineup is proven by the fact that I've clearly done it, right? You know. So yeah, that's really all there is to say about it at this point. I feel like in Limbus, a lot of people they focus on the damage type more than the sin type a lot, and I've found that sin damage is matching your sin to hit the weakness of the enemy sin oftentimes is more effective than using just a a team that has the right physical damage, because when something gets staggered, all the physical damage is going to be doing critical. But if you've got the proper, excuse me, sin weakness, even if you don't have the right amount of damage, you can still blow enemies up, and that really plays into this fight here a lot, where the sin is far more important than the damage type, because these guys are weak to strike and pierce with a normal resistance to slash, I believe. Yeah, W-Corp Ryoushu still carries her weight in the early game as someone to just blow people up the same way Sinclair does, just because the Pride Sin is going to give her the double damage, and that double damage really does a lot. It does a lot. But a lot of people don't seem to, they don't really seem to pay much attention to the sin they're using. They tend to just kind of throw in the right damage types, put in the characters that have good synergies, and then play it out. And then they wonder why they're not doing as much damage, or why they can't get low turn counts in Railway or whatever. And it's like, well, you've got a nice like team with good synergies, but you're not really adapting them to what the enemy is weak to and what you're not really adapting yourself to the fight. You're just kind of running some like really powerful guerrilla effective tactic that's really effective. Like it's meta for a reason. Like Envy is extremely meta, but as the game starts to, I feel like, give us more demanding encounters, hopefully in the future, you're not going to be able to just run Unga Bunga, this is the most meta synergizing tactic. You're going to have to kind of use less meta tactics. Like a lot of people I've talked to have been surprised that I used W-Corp Ryoushu, and that I used her Blind Obsession for this, because they go, oh my god, Blind Obsession on Ryoushu is terrible, and she's using slash damage, it's not even worth it. But it really is effective, and it's kind of cool that we're getting fights now that are allowing more niche egos and more of the niche IDs to shine, because up to this point, like, no one really used Blind Obsession Ryoushu. Everyone kind of agrees it's meh, but it's really nice in this fight, and it ends up kind of filling the hole just enough that if you didn't have her on your team, you would be relying on luck a lot more than you maybe already are. I think that's pretty neat. Then you got the people who are always mad about charge. I don't get why people get so mad about the charge IDs. Like, and then they get mad that, like, charge doesn't have any synergy. Like, charge isn't supposed to, like, I mean, not to say that charge shouldn't have a synergy, but it's like, charge is just a resource to expend. Like, I think you could put charge on any character and for the most part, and it would be fine. Charge is just a conditional to give you certain abilities and to force you to play the character in a certain way or not be able to use certain abilities at certain times. Like, Gregor's got a goddamn E.G.O that gives him, like, rupture support if he's got charge. And I think his only, like, rupture charge kind of ID is the Rose Spanner one, which maybe, it's okay maybe, but with his E.G.O, he could potentially build up a lot of charge with another ID and still support with rupture. So charge is just a conditional that gives you certain abilities. I don't understand why people get so mad, like, we're getting so many charge IDs. It's like, well, yeah, but none of them synergize with each other, because their whole thing is just either straight DPS with charge as the conditional, or it's a certain effect with charge, and they would be better suited to, like, a rupture team or a bleed team like Merceau, if just by having charge as the conditional. So it kind of blows my mind that people get so annoyed by charge, but people seem like they kind of don't understand what's going on. But anyway, there you go. See, all 77 complete. Easy mode right there. 77, 39%. Isang doing a lot of work. And when you look at the damages, Ishmael and Ryoushu don't really look like they're doing tons of work because they're kind of on the lower end. They don't spend a lot of the early game killing the small ones, like Sinclair does. But they really do carry their weight. They're worth it to bring along. So anyway, maybe this will help someone who hasn't been able to beat this with all, maybe this will help someone who hasn't been able to beat this because they didn't get the new Outis, and maybe it's just kind of interesting to see how it would be done without the new Outis. But anyway, yeah, I just like the sound of my own voice. I like the monologue.